The rain was a thin, steady hiss against the window panes. It was the only sound besides the whisper in my ear, transmitted via the microscopic patch I'd installed on her phone 3 months prior. I was in the library polishing a corporate presentation. Eleanor, my wife, was in the conservatory talking to her father, the man who believed he was untouchable. Her voice, usually silken, was sharpened with contempt. "He's a weakling, just a CPA. He'll sign whatever we put in front of him." I felt nothing, no heat, no anger, only the slow, heavy turn of the lock on a cage I had chosen to live in. 12 years I had been the soft consultant, the man with the clean fingernails and the predictable schedule. 12 years I had kept my past secret, a force recons officer, specializing in structured assaults and counter intel. I wasn't hiding from them, I was hiding among them. Then came the order, the words that shattered the illusion. Send your men to the warehouse tomorrow. Make it look like an accident. Accident? A structural failure, a fall from a forklift, something clean, silent, untraceable. I pulled the earbud out. The silence was deafening. I looked down at the spreadsheets on my desk, their financial projections, their criminal architecture. I hadn't been an accountant, I had been an auditor. The betrayal wasn't the attempt on my life, I expected that. The betrayal was her certainty, her deep foundational belief that I was the shallow vessel she saw. They named the location. They chose the battlefield. The warehouse, the one Eleanor's family had recently acquired for logistics. It was registered in her name, managed by their shell company. They didn't know I had purchased the land 4 years before they ever saw it. They didn't know I designed the foundation, the internal schematics, and the sub-basement access. They didn't know that every structural flaw they were planning to exploit was a pressure plate I installed. The ghost protocol was activated. I went to my secondary workstation. No flash, no drama, just surgical precision. I accessed the site's integrated security matrix, a system only I knew how to fully operate. I didn't call the police, they were slow, vulnerable, and compromised. I called the only 3 numbers I still kept, retired assets who worked clean, fast, and owed me loyalty measured in survival. The messages were coded, direct. Falcon is live. 0 casualties on our side. Bring them in clean. I diverted the warehouse's power grid to a secondary generator. I verified the internal gas dispersal lines. They were primed with a powerful, non-lethal incapacitant, set to trigger if the main structural beam's vibration sensor was tripped, exactly the beam they planned to cut. I wasn't planning a slaughterhouse. I was planning a capture. Violence is loud. Psychological severance is permanent. I spent the rest of the night deleting my digital shadow from their world. Bank access, cloud backups, insurance policies. I was erasing the pencil pusher. The sun climbed weak and gray. Eleanor walked into the kitchen, wearing a cashmere robe, sipping tea. She looked relieved, satisfied. She thought the problem was being solved. She thought I was already collateral damage. My phone vibrated once. A single word from my contact. Cage secure. I placed my phone face up on the counter, the message clear. I watched her eye it, a flicker of irritation that I hadn't hidden it. I didn't need to hide anymore. "Good morning, darling," she purred, the triumph barely veiled. "Sleep well?" I pushed my tablet toward her. It displayed the live satellite feed of the warehouse, the external cameras I'd never told her about. The view switched to the interior thermal imaging. 4 figures, bundled and unconscious, lying precisely where they had fallen. My team was already extracting them through the sub-level exit. Her face went slack. Her teacup clattered. Pure shock. "That's the warehouse," she stammered, denying the undeniable. "Yes," I confirmed, my voice a flat, clinical drone. "The one you sent your men into. The one I built. The one I finished 4 years ago, right after you signed the prenup, knowing this day would inevitably arrive." She looked at me, truly looked at me, seeing the Marine, the strategist, the ghost she had married. Her hands shook, flying to her mouth. The accident was for them, Eleanor," I said, leaning in. "They walked into a trap that has been set for over a decade. They are not dead. They are secured. And they are about to tell my legal team everything about your father's entire operation." The terror in her eyes was not for the men, but for the exposure of her own clan. The realization that I hadn't been a victim, but a deep-cover agent who had just dismantled her entire family infrastructure from the inside. "You called me a weakling," I finished, a statement of fact, not emotion. "You mistook patience for apathy. You mistook my civilian life for my entire existence." I turned, leaving the tablet flashing with the thermal image of her captured men. I grabbed my pre-packed duffel bag, not the briefcase, but the one I'd used overseas. I walked toward the front door. I was leaving the mansion, the wealth, and the marriage. I was leaving the lie. She started to cry, a pathetic, desperate sound of a puppet whose strings had been cut. I did not look back. The house was cold. The air was clean. The mission was complete. I was finally redeployed.